And if you take one step towards your passion, that thing that you would do no matter what, you'll wind up in your purpose. And I think for me, that one step towards my passion was my love for my sister.
Was this something where, Matthew, you and Perry were looking for something to do, or Wes, you were looking to kind of tell the story in a way and were searching out for them?
It's actually kind of amazing because I think it was literally both. You know, Allyson and I, we've been talking about making a documentary about her life for years, over a decade. And we met Matt and Perry, never thought about actually working together. And then all of a sudden we get a call.
And we had listened to Allyson and Wes speak with each other and actually had a great time just hanging out. And as we walked away, we were thinking, someone must be making this documentary. Someone must be making this documentary. And then we said, well, we've got to ask. And then we asked, and I think
nobody was making it. And I was like, you know, we wish someone was. Like, we think it's so powerful, but it has to be the right people. And I think a lot of that is just, as you've gotten to know, it's Allyson and just who's going to be able to really get her to feel comfortable and safe enough to truly, truly open up. It's you guys. You did it.
She stepped out and she said, hey, we're not going to take it anymore.
We're getting to a certain point of what we're having to deal with as both a woman in general, plus a woman athlete, and a lot of other things that are going on in that world. But you have to lay down Allyson's history for people who maybe don't know, and they're coming into this fresh. Was there a part of you that felt like, I have almost like 2 movies I'm trying to put together here?
I think at one point in the edit room, we felt like we had 6 movies that we were trying to put together because there's so much to Allyson's story. And when you get into the details, there's so much to each race, each world championship, each Olympics. And that was the biggest challenge, is trying to figure out the through line to the story. Plus, the big challenge and the gift was when we went to their parents' house to see what archival footage they had. And first your dad comes out with a box and we're like, oh, that's great. He's got a box full of all this Super 8. And then the next box and the next box and the next box. And we had over 400 hours of home videos from your parents, which was just awesome.
The best. And I think that, like, with that, it was so cool to see the way you guys incorporated it into the film in such a beautiful way, to lay that groundwork like you're talking about, but also to just really put just like the true lens, that real filter on who Allyson is in a real way. And you don't get the Olympian in any of that footage. You get just a little girl from South LA who wanted to run and play and have fun and, you know, had big dreams.
In a lot of ways, it seems that, like, for Allyson and you, it's like, you had plans, you had things you wanted to achieve, but it seems that a lot of the stuff was fallen into. Like, she wasn't even planning on going to track in general. And then as you're getting the contracts together, it just happens to come up with the idea about the birth of the baby and all this other stuff. Are there parts of you that felt that maybe if you knew and you were prepared for that, it would have gone like a completely different direction?
Completely, 100%. You know, there's something that Allyson and I say a lot, and we even talk to people on our team, that, you know, when you're trying to figure out your purpose in life, you just take one step towards your passion. And if you take one step towards your passion, that thing that you would do no matter what, you'll wind up in your purpose. And I think for me, that one step towards my passion was my love for my sister. Let's start working together. And then when we're going into a negotiation, it's, well, I love my sister. That's not fair. One step towards our passion, and all of a sudden we're making change, you know. And same thing when we really decided to push Nike to make a change. That was our love for Allyson's daughter, my niece, and saying, like, she can't take on this fight in 18 years. Not if we can throw a punch right now. We're at least going to try to make this better. So I do think that had we understood the power of our voice, it would have been entirely different. And I think we would have been too afraid to use our voice if we knew that it actually could create change. We didn't think anybody was going to listen. I remember the day the New York Times op-ed came out, and it was like, I wonder if anybody's going to read this. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people read it, you know. So it would have been entirely different had we known. Yeah.
It's also this strange feeling. It's, again, there's a lot of these things that, you know, you're learning as you go along. You didn't even think about the idea of maternal rights and all these other things. And it feels weird. It feels weird trying to put it into question, because I think a lot of people see big corporations. They never think, oh, perfect people. But I think Nike used to have a history of, You're like, oh, I think they care, and all those other things. But you'd think, especially in mid-2000s and 2010s, they come up with an idea of why don't we create a shoe for person who is active but also now in motherhood, like a crossbreed. So many ways they can look at it, and they never did. Did it shock you that they never tried to take another angle?
Definitely shocked me. Like knowing that part of the story, looking back, does it shock you that they didn't?
I think it's shocking. I think it's also like a market opportunity. There's so many different elements of it. And I think one of the things that's most remarkable, to pivot off what you were saying, Wes, about following your passion, Allyson and Wes are inspirational in this sense of trusting their gut and doing the right thing, and change coming from that. More right things happening, because as you see in the film, as you see in history, Nike did the right thing in the end. And that's really important because it transformed an industry. And right now, when there's sort of, for many people, a lot of pressure, a lot of feeling that it's hard to do the right thing, I think Allyson's story and Wes's story is a reminder that you do the right thing, positive change can happen. It inspires other people, big institutions can do the right thing too.
It's one of those things you look at it from whether side, whether you're in it yourselves or I'm looking at it from the outside or anybody's looking from the outside. It's like, and you have to use the example because it's Nike and Michael Jordan, obviously. But like, if Michael Jordan was still playing, breaks his leg, because that's when I saw the idea that Allyson gets injured first before the pregnancy, I'm like, I understand that there are certain compensational things that may change, but like, doesn't mean you're going to erase the contract because somebody's not going to be active at that moment. So it's such a shock just to think that this exists.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I think one of the big things, the word is scale, and when I think of how does it work at scale, and Nike is so big that at scale there starts to be these little cracks in them having challenges to do the right thing. But that's where I thought it was amazing that they really did go and change. But like you're saying, Michael Jordan would have broken his leg. Like, you're not going to get rid of the contract. And, it's very clear he's still going to sell a lot of shoes, even if his leg is broken. And that's one of the things, that we really pushed on was, no. If Allyson is out, is she going to stop selling shoes for you just because she's having a baby? Like, I think we can make an argument she's probably going to sell more shoes for you. And they ultimately didn't see it that way.
Was there parts of you in hindsight, because thinking about the idea that she was hiding the pregnancy but working out constantly, it's like, well, we could have turned that actually into something if we kind of brought it up at that point, that maybe they actually could have done something with it even then.
Yeah, potentially. I think that historically, what we would have been, trusting was that they would not act in their pattern that we had watched for 20 years. And so, possibility and hindsight, who knows? I know what their answer would be if we got to ask them today. but I think that, we were looking at 20 years of history. And I think that history, the 20 years, that was just how long we were in the sport. So that's where we had names that we could say this person ran into it. And, something we didn't talk about much in the film, but, Allyson and I had hours and hours of conversations with athletes, with Olympic champions, just in tears, saying like, I'm so grateful that you're standing up because I can't. I can't because I'm under contract. I'd be breaching my contract. I can't because nobody's going to listen to me. My voice isn't loud enough, and I don't know what I would do after that. And for me, it was a lot of those tear-filled conversations from some of the greatest athletes in the world that just kept our fire fueled to be able to keep on moving forward and creating this change.
There's still so many things in the terms of women's rights that, like, a lot of how much the population knows about the pink tax, all these things that exist that are being held back from women's rights. So to learn that, even for shoes, they're modeling stuff after men's feet at this point still. Are there things that to this minute, to this day, that you're still like, how is this still going on? What else can we now do to change that?
I think from the first conversation that the four of us had about the film, Perry Peltz and Allyson and Wes and me, it was about the struggle continues, because we're still, put track and field aside, like we don't have paid maternity leave guaranteed in our country. We're the only sort of top economy in the world that doesn't have paid maternity leave. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much progress that needs to happen in terms of pay equity, maternal care, access to health care across the board. We have one of the highest maternal fatality rates still in the industrialized world. These are things that need to change. We are not at the finish line, so to speak. We are just like part of the way around the track.
Yeah, we're just getting started, and I think, you know, as men, it's very interesting because we don't have to suffer through the realities of what women go through. And so making this film, getting to work so closely with my sister, being able to fight for things that, you know, I wish I could say I was fighting for women. I was fighting for my sister. And that was really, really different. And then along the way, I learned and was able to understand what was happening for women and how women were experiencing it. And you mentioned, you know, shoes being made based on men's bodies. What was really mind-blowing to me was to learn, there's a book called Invisible Woman, and to learn how many things women are not taken into account for. You know, things like, we all know that if you get a heart attack, look for, you know, for pain in your left arm. Well, not for women, because nobody was testing women on this. And so now women are potentially having a heart attack. They're waiting for pain in their left arm and it never comes. You know, small things like what temperatures are set to in office buildings are based on what's comfortable to a man. And then you hear it and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I walk around an office building completely comfortable. I look at every woman bundled. There's blankets, you know, like really small things. And something that really has been kind of like heartbreaking to me is Allyson and I started a footwear company. And as we talk to women, we make our shoes based specifically on women's bodies. And that's not what's happening in the industry. And as we talked with women, and I would say to them, no, but they're made based on a woman's body. Did you know that your shoes aren't made based on a woman's body? The response wasn't what I thought it would be. It wasn't, let's go burn it down. This is unbelievable. I can't believe it. You know, it was, yeah, of course. Of course it's not made for me. And it was heartbreaking to see women's response be, well, yeah, of course it's not made for me. And I hope that this film gets to be something that shows women that 2 kids from South Central LA could get Nike to change their maternal policy for all of their female athletes in a way that affects Naomi Osaka and Caitlin Clark. And like, if we can do that, then we've got a lot of work to do collectively, and your voice is just as powerful as ours, and there are a lot of things that need to be changed.
I think there's a lot of people, you know, that they're 9-to-5 jobs, office in office, day in, day out. They're like, they're superstars, they got so much money, it doesn't make a difference. But it's funny to watch Allyson ready just to throw it all away for the sake of everybody else. Now, luckily, it came out on a better side for her. Are there suggestions you would have for people that also want to make these changes, things that they should do in their own lives?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, the biggest thing to me was Allyson was willing to throw it all away. And in essence, she did. And it was terrifying. You know, we get to look back on it, and we've talked about this, you know, at times, like when you're looking back on it, it all works. But there was a real 2-year period where Allyson and I didn't make any money and had no clue if we were ever going to make money again. We're talking with every major footwear company in the world, none of them are interested. And even the way that it worked out, the working out was still, we had to go and build a footwear company. That and we'll see if that works out. But what I can tell you right now is for my beauty rest, it absolutely is not working out. But but I think that, you know, it's, that thing to everyone else is it is hard, it is terrifying, and it is possible.
Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.